Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez. Earlier this year, Growth Management Director Joanne Miller-Buntage and members of her staff met with residents of the Tree Streets neighborhood in Hyannis about the possibility of refurbishing and redesigning Ridgewood Park, which is bordered by Locust, Linden, Oak, and Mulberry Streets. At that meeting, residents shared their opinions on what types of changes and upgrades they'd like to see, and from that, the Growth Management Department developed 3 distinct design plans for a new Ridgewood Park, all of which will be presented to residents at a meeting this evening in the Shepley Room of the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. We got a sneak peek at the designs earlier today when Joanne Miller-Buntage joined us on Barnstable this morning. And in case you can't make tonight's meeting, or you're just curious to see how community input directly shapes municipal projects, here's a look back at what we heard and saw.
Well, in growth management, we have spent a lot of time, as you know, looking at downtown Hyannis as part of the revitalization process, and over the course of the years, you know, we tackle one segment or another: infrastructure, roadways, zoning, regulatory process. So now we're to the part of the process where we're looking at the broader infrastructure, and we started to look at open space and park spaces in downtown Hyannis. This was touched on briefly when they went through the growth incentive zone application process, so now it's time for us to pick it up and really pay attention to it and make a plan, see what we need to do. So 2 things happened. We were doing that work. In the course of that, we sort of focused in on Ridgewood Park. It's a real neighborhood park. It's one of the few neighborhood parks, probably the only one actually, in downtown Hyannis. It was created as part of the Tree Street neighborhood. And there was an initiative through the Rec Commission, who oversees that park, from a local group that wanted to install a prefabricated playground for the children there. And so both of those things came together at the same time, and we decided to reach out to the neighborhood in a process that we call a charrette, but it's a community meeting, to hear from the neighbors how they envision using the park and what they would like to see. And so we did that, as you can see, last January. We were out there talking to the neighbors. We used the Shepley Room at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center, and we learned a lot, as we always do. And so what we learned was they really don't want to see a lot of big changes in the park. We learned that they really love their park. We learned that they use their park. And we learned that they have some concerns around crime prevention to a certain degree.
Okay. And so in the period of time between the first meeting, which was early this year, and now, tonight's meeting, Growth Management has gone ahead and created some design concepts based on what you heard at that original meeting, right?
That's right, exactly.
So we have 3 basic design concepts that we're going to show you here in case you can't make the Ridgewood Park meeting tonight. And we'll take a look first at Concept A. And Joanne, I'm just going to step out of the frame here and let you kind of show people what's behind us a little bit.
Sure. Concept A is, as I said, what we heard originally from the folks, not originally, but what we heard during our conversation with Ridgewood Park neighbors was that they didn't want a lot done, but there were a lot of varieties to their ideas. Some wanted to see sort of a butterfly garden. Some wanted to see the playground structures just kept to a bare minimum. Just what's there today is a swing set and sort of a climbing structure. Others wanted to see a place where they could walk, and what we call informal spaces, just open grassed areas that could be used for ball games or sitting or picnicking or community gatherings. And so those 3 concepts sort of epitomized what they saw. This is a more formal design concept. We're going to them tonight to get their feedback, and we'll end up with a winner. Or they'll send us back and say, fix it a little bit here and a little bit there. So the 3 concepts, as you can see, draw a little bit on the existing structure of the park, which is really 2 blocks in the center of the Ridgewood Park neighborhood with a street that goes through it, Maple Street. And so this builds on what's there already. There are some trees there on the edges of the park. This formalizes it a little bit, and this adds more trees, leaves the wide grassed area as they has requested. And the interesting thing about this is up here in this area, this was, the neighbors told us that this was originally used as an orchard. And so this references back to that orchard design with some fruit trees there.
Interesting. So let me step back in here for a moment. And so is this concept the most unaltered concept in terms of what the park looked like to begin with, or are there really substantial changes in this one?
No, I think there's a lot, as you can see, there's a lot of tree planting that's going to go on here, but the grass spaces are left pretty much as they are today, and then the addition of the pathway. So they're all fairly unaltered, but they're different variations on the theme.
Okay, so this was Concept A behind us right now. Let's take a look at Concept B if we can, and that now appears on the screen here. And as we can see, less tree plantings going on, lots more open space. And are we eliminating Maple Street in this concept?
Yes, that was something that the neighbors had really wanted to have happen. So we have, I think the next two concepts, B and C, both show the elimination of Maple Street. And so what this does is bring the walkways, it unites the two portions of the park, but they still have two rather different functions. The one on your right shows the playground structure, just the simple old-fashioned steel swing set that's there today, and a walkway. And then just a minimum amount of trees. One of the concerns the neighbors had was that a lot of cover not be provided, because they wanted to be able to see what was going on in the park at all times, and they wanted, if necessary, the police to be able to see what was going in the park. So this has fewer trees, builds on the trees that are there, and just has the walkway and then the informal grass spaces. One of the things you'll notice on this, which we were glad to hear, the neighbors gave us some good direction about how they get into the park. So at the four corners of the park, back here, as you can see, and down here, and then on the other four corners, you'll see that we've made a concept of pedestrian crossings that are not there today. So it's more formal. They asked for some structural improvements, such as raising the raised table, pedestrian crossings. We think there might be some issues with stormwater if we do that. It's very flat out there, but we heard what they had to say. They want the sidewalks, in other words, to get to the park through the neighborhood. We need to do some work there as well. So those are shown too. Okay,
I'll step back in one more time here, and we'll move on to Concept C. And Concept C is interesting to the extent that it will alter the landscape of the park. We can see over on the Mulberry Street side of the park the grassy knoll there, and I feel like that's a historical reference, but it's an actual thing too. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in this concept here, and I'll step out for it again.
Our the woman who works with us on this has worked in growth management for a number of years. Kate Kennan. She's a landscape architect, and Kate's done this work and has done a lot of the work that's very visible in downtown Hyannis as well. But what Kate did here was continue the idea of removing Maple Street. We continue the pedestrian crossing idea, but they're done in a little bit different way. And then because the area is so flat, there was just this idea that instead of adding additional play structures, why not just add a mound? Children can run up and down, people can sit on it, perhaps it could be a focal point for a community event or something of that nature. So these are the three concepts that we're bringing forward for the consideration of the neighbors tonight. And
it's really interesting and cool to see folks' needs and wants and thoughts put directly into a plan, put directly into action. It's got to be pretty satisfying and a pretty fun aspect of what you do for a living.
It's the favorite thing, my favorite thing to do, go out into the villages and into the communities and talk to people and help them implement their villages.
Now let's take a look at this week's remaining meetings. Tuesday, November 9th, the school committee meets in the town hall hearing room at 7 o'clock. On Wednesday, November 10th, the golf committee meets in the town hall hearing room at 5:30, and the Old Kings Highway Historic District Commission meets at the West Barnstable Community Building on Route 149 at 7 p.m. Well, that's all for now. I'm Nick Cortez, and we'll see you next time on Barnstable Today.